Morning, everyone. How are you? Good and excited, yes. Well, welcome to Arts Without Limits. We're very excited to have you all. My name is Kendra Lapola, and I'm an associate professor at the School of Fashion. We are so grateful today to welcome our industry guest, Aidan Meany, who will be here to talk with us. I'll give you a little bio about him. Aidan Meany is the founder and CEO of Found Surface, a Cleveland-based factory specializing in apparel and soft goods. Aidan leads the company's innovation in digital knitting, blending technology with traditional craftsmanship to create high-quality, sustainable goods. Found Surface partners with the Rust Belt Riders to compost factory waste and is actively bringing commercial dye to the market. Aidan's focus on transparency and collaboration positions Found Surface as a leader in responsible American production. Found Surface is a one-stop shop for clients looking to design, develop, and produce their soft goods sustainably in the USA. So let's welcome Aidan.
Thank you. Hey guys. Find a place to put this water so it doesn't fall all over me. All right, let's see if we can get this going. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited for any opportunity to talk to young folks like me, honestly. I feel always too much like the youngest person in the room, so this is kind of refreshing to feel like I'm back with my people a little bit. I'm gonna race to the beginning. I don't know why this started in the front here, so there we go. Really, I'm here to talk to you guys about my journey a little bit, starting from learning how to sew just as a general interest, all the way to solving real world issues, connecting that to my career, sort of just navigating that process, because it's just increasingly gotten stranger and more convoluted and easy to get bogged down just given where the world's at. So I want to start with kind of rough timeline here to guide my context for you guys as I go through this. Overall, I learned how to sew in 2015. My grandmother taught me. I was going into high school, and that's when I really connected the dots going into high school that, hey, I can actually like take this talent that my grandmother gave me and start making like clothes out of it, start making this an art form for myself. I was really focused on drawing. I was into drawing shoes. I was doing sculpture, but it took me a few years to connect the sewing component to this as like a sculptural art form. So 2015, I learned to sew, and I started doing runway shows at my high school. I went to an all-boys private Catholic high school in Cleveland called St. Ignatius. I showed up freshman year and said, I want to do a runway show. They looked at me like I was crazy. Nobody had ever asked that before. And they let me do it, and I did one every year, and it kind of garnered more interest. By the time I left, there was sewing, pattern drafting, extracurricular opportunities. The school had bought sewing machines. They started investing in these things. So there was an interest in the school, and you would never expect it to be there until somebody finally kind of got loud about it. So fast forward a little bit, I'm in college at Syracuse University. Obviously, COVID hits in 2020. 2021, I was in full Zoom school for industrial design. I'm sitting back, I'm like, they're telling me that the work I was doing in the wood shop and the metal shop, they're now telling me, open up your computer and like imagine you're in the wood shop, and it sucked, like it was not the same. So I started researching just different opportunities about what my career might look like after I graduated. That gave me the space to think about like, what does my career look like? What am I doing after I graduate? I want to be in apparel in some way. But really, it led me down this crazy rabbit hole of, okay, well, what's the infrastructure in the United States for apparel? Not just design, but manufacturing, because that's the part I loved, was like the making of the clothes. I knew there's tons of design opportunities. I could go, be number 2,000 on a team that sends their stuff super far away, and then someone else gets credit for it, and I feel taken advantage of for decades of my life. But I started realizing, hey, there's actually little mom and pop mills and farms and cut and sew facilities and all these little efforts spread out across the country. So that's primarily what I did while I was in school, and that really led the first founding of what is now Found Surface, which started really as a supply chain consultancy job, one-man project manager for folks who wanted to make something sustainably here in the States. I was like, well, I know who all the people are, so I can just connect you and do that from my dorm room. So that's where I've took it in 2021, was starting to connect these dots of, all right, I still want to be in a career way connected to the actual making of clothes. Fast forward to 2023, we, as in myself and 3 or 4 individuals that knew the foundations of apparel making and could sew some stuff, got together and we found a really cheap building in Slavic Village, Ohio, 15 minutes south of Tremont, if that makes sense to you. And we moved in with a table and a sewing machine. And we just started saying, hey, if anyone needs anything, let us know. And leading up to that space, the consultancy work had done enough to allow me to create a first line of product, a first line of direct-to-consumer product that was made in USA. It was made using traceable organic cotton from these different partners that I was helping other brands connect to, but I finally saved up enough money to make this collection. And that collection did really well, and I really just launched it in Cleveland, and the creative community in Cleveland really came out in a big way for that. And I had no idea this was gonna happen, but I eventually had the opportunity to open a brick and mortar store off the success of that collection. And I really didn't want to make it a Found Surface only store. So I got together with some of my lifelong friends, and we made a everything made in Ohio / Cleveland store. And it did gallery shows and live music shows, and we just highlighted anything cool happening around us, really. And that served as a really important catalyst to connect with makers that could really benefit from a mechanism in Cleveland that could produce soft goods. So fast forward to 2023, off the success and sort of understanding and collaboration of that creative community in Cleveland, we found this empty building, which I have photos, so I have a whole timeline of photos after this I'll show you. Literally, a building had burned down, so we moved in with ash and windows were blown out, and they were like, if you can do something in here, do it. It was almost free. So we started kind of project by project, creating blanks, creating whatever sort of projects people needed us to work on, and really strategizing in our free time, what does Made in USA need to look like to be viable, to thrive, and to set a new standard in the global production, apparel manufacturing, and development world. Lot of thinking and brainstorming and mapping and supply chain work going on there to eventually sort of set our growth map and our action plan. So that's 2023. Fast forward, next summer, we're going to be moving into a 20,000 square foot facility. It will be the largest knitting facility in Cleveland and arguably Ohio. I'm 90% sure on that, so I don't want to say that with certainty, but certainly the largest cut and sew and knitting development production facility for fashion and activewear, and that innovates on materials and does supply chain work, and we do a lot of things, so I'll get into that as well. So that's all just from me, being interested in sewing clothes in my parents' attic and finding other people that wanted to do that, and the power of coming together and dreaming and solving like real issues for brands. I think that's the key. Is the whole time we had big ideas, big visions. We liked our designs. We wanted to make that. But at the end of the day, we were realistic in that if we solve real issues for brands that are successful now, they will trust us enough to work with them in whatever way they need us to. And our early flexibility on those sorts of things is going to unlock our ability later to really innovate in exciting ways and put our ideas forward and have people understand that there's weight and credibility to that because we're doing all of this other work for other brands and various institutions. So this is like the visual component to the timeline. So like photo on the left is literally, I went through my camera roll and dug something up from 2016 of the floor of my parents' attic, just making stuff. I'm sure this looks like familiar, just like doing whatever it takes, all the way to sourcing various, swatches, made in USA, zippers, hardware, packaging ideas, sort of my supply chain study work during quarantine, to stumbling upon a space with an owner who really loved the vision and mission, who cut us an amazing deal and provided us a space to highlight things made in Cleveland. So, no idea how to run a retail store, like zero experience, no idea, but it just like felt right. We knew the people to do it. We knew we were gonna figure it out. So yeah, just a lot of like kind of crazy 0 to 100, all the way to, yeah, there's our burned down building, to this is what it looks like today, which is pretty nuts. So yeah, we have stole equipment. We have over 20 different sewing machines, taping machines, linkers. We got programming in-house, all that jazz. It's pretty awesome. It feels like the Wonka factory. To what we're gonna fill out in the summer. So this is West Bank of the Flats. Pretty sweet. It was supposed to be a pickleball rec center, which who knew that served as like the perfect template for an awesome creative development manufacturing facility. So unfortunate that he didn't plan well financially and ran out of money, but good for us that we were able to fill it out. So yeah, this is kind of like my journey here. In a nutshell, to sum that sort of timeline up. I'd like to focus a little bit on some of the issues that really sit top of mind for us at Found Surface. I think, I'll give a little bit of context as to our team and our build out so you can kind of understand how we approach these issues. But right now we're a full-time team of 14. We have a pretty awesome contracted network of folks that come in with specific skills, whether that's equipment maintenance to sewing to pattern making, kind of supplementary tactile folks that love to have the freedom of being freelance that we work with a lot. So in full ramp, we're almost like 35, 40 sometimes. And so we can pretty much take a client that's never made apparel before ever and doesn't know anything about it through the I want to start a brand to I've successfully launched a brand. That's proven to be pretty difficult to do at scale, to handle a lot of those at a time. So we love to take on as many as we can, but most of our time right now is solving material development, supply chain issues for larger industry legacy players, and then contract manufacturing for mid to large size brands that kind of fit our capacity and output currently. And then new development, R&D for, could be medical companies to apparel and sportswear companies. And we're the folks that they come to say, hey, we don't want to join this crazy, blown out, globalist, murky situation for our products. We don't want to make this out of virgin polyester, whatever it might be, like we're the sustainability partner to come in and make that commercially viable. Yeah, so these are like our main issues. This is kind of what we look at. This is like a sample of the lens that we look at stuff through. I think a lot of this is not new to anybody in this room, but there's just like an endless amount of issues in the industry. Like it's horrible, it's like really terrible, and I really didn't feel like I could join that workforce unless I was either working for a company that was making real change, which was like hard to find, so I started it myself. And there's issues in a lot of categories. I'd say that currently we've really nailed the organic cotton pipeline for raw material manufacturing. So we've worked really closely with folks in Texas and South Carolina to nail the cost and output required to like make that a commercially viable thing for some larger companies. But then you hit that checkpoint, and now it's like, well, great, now you need a workforce to support manufacturing the number of units that take like Abercrombie needs or something, right? And that's like a whole other issue to solve. So we're just trying to, one by one, solve these issues so that we're just making things responsibly, like in a fun way, at scale, out of materials that aren't gonna continue this ridiculous cycle of, breaking down in 1,000 years or more, and it's, garbage truck of textiles burned every second, right? Like, the only way to make fundamental change is if you're a manufacturer that is bearing the pressure from what is right, like what we know is right, and what brands are willing to pay for, and just put the work in to make that, to smooth that bridge over. There's too many folks I talk to that say, the brands drive everything, and the brands are driven by consumers, and the manufacturers can only do what the brands are willing to pay for. It's like, that's all good and true, but if the manufacturers work hard enough and collaborate hard enough with raw material companies and farmers and all these different parts of the supply chain, then you can sweeten the deal. So that's how we approach this. From a, don't make this out of polyester, make this out of cotton grown in Texas. Try sampling out of a, this interesting, bio-based, elastane alternative or something, right? Like there's a lot of these really interesting things going on, especially in the States, that just need to get like connected and plugged into brands that have existing relationships with manufacturers. Another good idea of like, how we, like our ethos as like how we work, what we bring to a job, what we bring to the conversation when we work with brands. I say this all the time, so if you've like heard me speak, you're gonna hear it again, but your skin is an organ, it's your biggest organ, you're absorbing stuff. Like, this hasn't hit I don't think this has hit the mainstream yet of looking at it like food or like when you're in a grocery store, but it's very similar. It has very like tangible health effects, and I'm interested in how long it takes for that message to really like get through. When we make things using really terrible materials, that has an actual cost to our health, and so we feel really strongly there needs to be a mechanism in the United States to manufacture things out of clean, good for your body materials, natural materials, because too many manufacturers are rooted in having a poly-first program. Like you see so many manufacturers where it's like, hey, I want something that's merino wool, and they're like, great, I have like a 50-50 blend with poly, or I've got they're like always cutting it with something. So foundationally, we're an organic cotton grown in Texas, spun in South Carolina, knitted in Cleveland, or circular knit in Pennsylvania program that I can call every single person that's working on that supply chain. And we're making tens of thousands of pounds of yarn every couple of months. So we've got a good little machine cranking that it's my hope that we really make a dent in that piece of the pie in terms of what's getting made in the States and then what's getting made globally. I always talk about the thrift store idea, like, what are thrift stores going to look like in 50 years? Because the issue with stuff that's made out of like full polyester is it lasts forever but looks good for like 3 wears, and then it just looks like crap for 400 years. It's like there's no cool like age to it or like patina to it, like all the nice stuff you find in a thrift store. The answer is going back to like all that stuff was made, with a different mindset, with different tools, with different ingredients. And so there's definitely an opportunity to sort of revitalize making things to last, making things to hand down, making things to, go in a thrift store and be recycled again. That's what we want to bring to brands and bring to the market. Another point I want to really focus on this slide is we don't have like an appropriate view on garment workers here in the United States. We feel a huge responsibility to set a new tone and new narrative for the people that actually are responsible for production. When you think of manufacturing in Italy, you think of the folks actually running production as almost like doctors or like a specialist of some kind, because they are. You need to be a specialist to make apparel at scale. We just think of sweatshops, and then we started making stuff in Los Angeles or the West Coast and basically made our own USA sweatshops. And we feel a huge responsibility to really change this narrative. And that starts with overall environment, workload, pay, benefits, all these things. It's all like possible when you start really disregarding the mold that we've all sort of looked at production needing to be. The answer's always been to buy more, like just buy more for brands and consumers. But overproduction is an issue for everybody. Like brands don't want to sit on excess inventory, like they end up burning it, right? Or like it's bad for their balance sheet. So we feel we see a really interesting opportunity to create systems, like fulfillment systems for brands that are more adaptive, that let us be really close to an MTO, like made to order sort of situation. And I really don't see any other environment being well suited other than ours, and especially a company that's based in the States, because every other mechanism is set up for more. Shrinking that is going to be a really hard, problem. So for right now, we're really focused on learning what brands care about, because the brand of today is so much different than when Cleveland was making clothes in the 1920s. So we need to really focus on, hey, everyone's got a Shopify. Like, how are we integrating with Shopify and understanding like batch production methods and preventing overproduction at large? That lets us really be a sort of bigger player in the industry than a lot of people think we can be, because we're paying attention to that part of the system. And this is what gets us really excited from a sustainability standpoint, which is our whole focus and mission. So there's some really incredible materials that are getting worked on. The issue is, are we adopting them? Are they actually sustainable? Do they actually make sense? There needs to be someone to be like testing these things in the market. There needs people to be making samples out of this stuff. There's a disconnect between material companies and folks that are willing to sample and give it a shot. put it in front of a market partner. That's what we focus on. So we try sampling all kinds of new different yarns and textiles. Really interesting equipment. Like, we always wash test samples, with dye houses and whatnot. And now there's steam inject drying that doesn't use, water in the same way. You're not wasting water like you're running it through a full load. It doesn't take 2 hours for a cycle to get your sample, shrink test results. It's 15 minutes in a steam inject dryer. So a lot of interesting equipment advancements on that front that we like to stay on the forefront of. I know we kind of briefly talked about natural dyes in my intro. We work with Green Matters natural dye company up in Pennsylvania. So many interesting opportunities there. Again, we need all hands on deck to communicate their capabilities to actual big brands that, if they adopt these practices, will make a huge difference. So we always basically like a nice big sales team for Green Matters every time we talk to a brand. Talked about smart factories. And again, wool. Like, wool is an amazing alternative if understood and applied correctly. So we are really, it's tricky. It's a really loaded, tricky question. I could go on forever about that. We have a couple mini wool initiative programs going on. But if anyone's a wool nerd, find me after and we can nerd out about wool. And all this leads to this idea of what does a new type of interaction between brand and factory look like? Because there's got to be a new one. What's currently going on clearly is not doing the job. So a lot of this comes down to just there being a conversation with brands that never really existed, and pushing brands, saying no. It's been a really uncomfortable journey for us, but at first you want to say yes to everything. We went through that phase. We said yes to everything. We made all kinds of crazy stuff. But eventually you have to sit back and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. If we just start saying yes to everything, then we become a part of the stream of whatever is cheap and easy and fast, and we get swept up in this, whole crisis that the fashion industry is, creating for itself. So we really have gotten good at being the voice of reality. Still working on it, but it's really uncomfortable sometimes. But saying we can do great work for you, but these are some parameters that we really need to stay within. Staying true to the reason why we were founded has only done good things for us. There's a lot of fear of if we hold our ground on XYZ, we will miss an opportunity, and you will, but you find the people that really want to work with you and want to grow with you, and that's been a huge reason for success for us. These are some more cool images. This shirt in the middle is our organic cotton core t-shirt made in Cleveland with some samples of a biochar of algae ink, screen printing ink, water-based ink. So completely biodegradable t-shirt that we are currently offering to clients, and we're really excited to release with some pretty sweet partners in 2026 that I think will make a big splash. But this is when we opened up this first facility, we were making t-shirts and trying to sell them for $45 to a brand. So, this is a $100 or more t-shirt for the brand to sell. And then in a year, with enough focus and interest and commitment to making the best t-shirt in the world in Cleveland, we're now doing this for under $20 with natural dyeing, with custom Pantone match dyeing, and bringing in natural-based screen printing inks. So this is actually happening, which is super exciting. I want to make the most sustainable, best t-shirt in the world in the United States. Take care of everybody in the United States. There's a lot of t-shirts getting thrown around, so that's a really huge opportunity to take care of, and there's room to innovate the manufacturing enough there to really be effective. So this is Christian on our team. Christian's ridiculously awesome, and he has a brand of his own, so he comes in with some cool ideas and perspectives on what somebody running their own Shopify store might care about, and we're always kind of at lunch like chatting about that. But then obviously here we're like, right, we're composting. We're able to compost all these scraps. So whether it's yarn being knit down on our stole machines or yardage, it's all the same cotton, the same source. None of it is treated. So even like the yardage sometimes has like dirt in it, which is kind of crazy. Initially it was an issue, but we sort of figured out how to get around it. There's literally like dirt in our stole machines. Sometimes it was crazy. So we've like seen a lot of hiccups. But again, it's not like scary to us. We need to figure out how to make that work. But yeah, we do compost, which is pretty, I don't know anyone doing that, which is pretty sweet. This is what some of our private label product looks like. So in terms of how we make working with us digestible and easy to approach, we have a private label line of product that we've done development for. It's about like 20 different styles of product. It's cut and sew and knitwear. And we've done the heavy lifting of patterning and grading and use testing and wear testing these things out. If a brand doesn't want to spend the money to develop a new thing from scratch. So this is an example of some of our private label product. Again, it's all USA organic cotton. We're able to sell these to brands at costs per volume that are coming in lower than what they're used to, which is actually like pretty insane. In some cases higher, not all the time. Most of the time higher, but sometimes it's lower and that's like, whoa, like that's crazy. So this is our jacquard sweater done on a CMS stole machine. We have a 352 that does that, and we let people customize logos, patterns, etc. This, we actually just sort of figured out, I don't know if anybody knows, I hope she's cool if I shout her out, but anyone knows Jenna Sawyer? She graduated from here. She just figured out how to do an 8-color on this, on the CMS, which is pretty crazy because we're just doing 3 for now and played around with some different yarn types, and now we're able to do like an 8-color custom logo pattern on those sweaters. 40 unit minimum, like really tangible for brands. We've got brands of all sizes participating. We have people that do, like to give you a reference, we have a woman in Chicago who's starting a brand for the first time. She has 200 followers on Instagram, like just started her store. She's making them. We just delivered some to the Fighting Irish for football season. So like, it's pretty insane the spectrum of application there that we're able to meet. So Notre Dame, one-woman show, e-com startup. Pretty insane. So yeah, that's like really exciting way to make this barrier to entry really palatable and really accessible. There's some of our yarn that we make. We manufacture, for those that kind of know about yarn, we manufacture 8-2, 10-2, 16-2 organic cotton, all to our own spec. We've done it from scratch. It's made to run at scale with minimal flyaway as possible, with a pretty solid twist ratio for our desired private label products. So we've done all that work from scratch with 2 amazing partners in South Carolina and then our farm in Texas. Do a lot of swatch making, so that's what that is on the left. We do a lot of, we like sell a swatch development pack, so for people that want to start planning for their next collection, next season, we have a program for that. Some pretty cool, that's our CMS, that's what makes that sweater. We do a lot of work for the Cleveland Museum of Art. So those are some of their scarves coming down. That's Caitlin and Brooke, who both went here. Our team is easily 70%, at least, Kent State grads. So if any of this looks fun, find my email and email me, because we want the best and we want to talk to you. And yeah, this is kind of what we focus on. There's a lot of things to fix. There's a lot of issues. It can feel really overwhelming, and I get bogged down like we all do when you see, brands with an opportunity to make a difference, like skip that opportunity and kind of stay in a certain mindset, and you gotta have faith that there's a better way forward, and do something about it, right? So that's what we're all about. We're all about being that bridge from how are things being done now poorly to what's the ideal and what's the roadmap to convert that. So we're well aware that like a lot of, especially the larger companies that we work with, come to us with some pretty bad habits, and we can't say no to them because you've got bad habits. We have to say, yes, but here's the roadmap, here's the rules, here's what we're gonna do for you to really transition and inform. I just don't think like enough folks that are making product, it's kind of insane for how much product is getting made, just have no idea how it's done. And so there's a lot of, it's frustrating because sometimes you're like, hey, like, why is it my job to educate you? And you're not paying me to do it. But it is really important to get this through to some really huge brands that could be a major player in converting process and our selection of inputs in terms of yardage. And I think it's very possible. There just needs to be that dialogue. And so I think this is a really interesting opportunity for young folks that understand how clothes are made, the potential of ways to innovate and change things, whether it's in pattern making or in material development, and bring that to the table in a way that can prompt a really fruitful conversation. I think there's like, everybody wants what's next. Everybody wants what's exciting. So that's like the common thing to tap into and say like, hey, like this is what has to be next. This is what people care about. The trends are there in terms of consumer if the prices aren't ridiculous. So that's the constant battle, right? That's the constant thing that we're fighting. What I want to highlight with this picture of our t-shirt is that we want every t-shirt, especially in Ohio, but throughout the country, to obviously be ours. We want to build a team that makes these in a way that nobody's ever seen t-shirts at scale get made. And we really believe that we've proven that in our little burned up building in Slavic Village, and are now scaling that. So we are planning to just about double our staff next year going into 27. So we're looking to hire a lot more folks, tons of different roles: supply chain, manufacturing, operations. There's tons of logistics we do. It's not just like making clothes. Like when it's done, there's a whole string of stuff to worry about after it's done. Whether that's where the hell is it? Did it go to Grain Matters? Is it in QC? Where is the stuff? So I think that's like a huge opportunity to really innovate, especially in the US. We have a lot of interesting tools and really talented people that want to bridge that gap and make those things easier, cheaper, faster, once the product is done. So we're gonna make the next, LA apparel in Cleveland, basically. That's our goal. That's what we feel really confident in doing, and we have a huge network of industry players that are lining up for this stuff, and really it's kind of crazy because it just feels like one big extension of me reluctantly learning how to sew when I was like 12, all the way to having like a, whatever an earlier than quarter life crisis would be about where my career is going. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I always love like a longer Q&A type thing. I don't know how much, I have no idea where we're at on time. Yeah? Can we do a longer Q&A? Is that cool?
Yeah,
Like,
I think there's lots of questions that I would imagine you guys would have. I'm seeing plenty of hands go up, so we'll just jump right in there. You want to say your name?
Hi, my name is Natavia Dawson.
Hey.
I don't know if I should say my major, but fashion design. But a question I had is, since you want all the T-shirts to be from your brand and your facility, are you partnered with Kent State by chance to like further merchandise that they sell in the bookstore?
I would love to be. I kind of like manifested that coming down here. I was like, it literally you answered my whole, vision for this trip down here. I was like, all right, I like need to make that happen. We're not formally, but like I'd love to be, and there's no reason we can't be or shouldn't be. So, like I said, pretty much our whole team is Kent grads. So we've just been really head down figuring out how to make T-shirts. Like.
Okay, good first question.
Hi, I'm Jada Adams. I'm a merch and design major, and speaking of you partnering with Kent State, do you take interns?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
What time of the year? Are we thinking like fall, spring, or summer?
It kind of, like, we're kind of always keeping an eye out.
Noted.
So I'd say summer is our peak. Like we have like a peak
We'll
in
talk.
summer.
I got that.
But apply at foundsurface.com or just find me after.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Cooper Matheny. I'm fashion merchandising, and I was just wondering, you said that you do the screen printing. Do you also do embroidery also?
Yeah, so we don't have screen printing and embroidery in our facility like we do knitting and sewing and everything else. My first job was in screen printing when I was 16, and one of my best friends started a screen printing and embroidery company in Cleveland. And when we moved into our first facility, I was really wanted everything to be in one place. But I don't know if you've ever been to a screen printing facility versus a apparel development manufacturing facility, but too much messiness happening on the screen printing side of things for me to sleep at night and make sure that it wasn't getting everywhere. So I trust them doing their thing. They're down the street from us, but we do offer that almost as like a fully integrated thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Violet Daxon, and I'm a design major. This one's a bit of a long one, but how are you and Found Surface as a whole making sure that you're not just adding to the, I think you used the term like pie chart, and are instead like making sure that parts that are more like polyester focused or less sustainable are shrinking and not just you're adding to it?
Yeah, great question. So we have guardrails for our own private label side of things that are never going to change. So we'll never have polyester anything in our private label program. That is the part of the business that we're scaling the most. So that's our primary focus, is in hoodies and tees and common block products that can apply. And our primary focus is in making those things cost effective out of the most sustainable materials. So take boutique retailer selling drop-shipped Alibaba knitwear made out of acrylic, and boom, we hit them up, and now they're doing organic cotton, lower minimum, right down the street. That's kind of our focus. When it comes to contract manufacturing, there's got to be a roadmap if they're doing things poorly. So, like I said, there's always kind of a understanding of these larger companies have really terrible habits, and so we see like, how many boxes can we check off the gate, and then how do we make a roadmap to check all of them? So if they're coming to us with, we want to make, like, we're going to go make this product, and we're going to make 5,000 of these, like acrylic whatever, right? Like acrylic blankets. We're going to go send them overseas to China, or we'll work with you. And so we entertain that conversation and say, well, we can at least have a major transportation emissions save by doing it here, because like, this is an example that they literally are in the Midwest. This company that I'm referencing is in the Midwest. So we're like, we can drive this to you locally without having any sort of freight. Boom, check that box. We can assure labor's done way more appropriately and actually like traceable. And then we'll go, just because this is our mission, put in work in sourcing to find material alternatives for that product. If we find something good that they'll say yes to and really push them on it, then we switch really their whole product around to be a more sustainable one and done locally. If they don't say yes to that, then we say, hey, we'll make this, but this means you're partnering with us, and this is our goal. And we hate firing clients, but we have fired clients, you know? So it's like a thing that we are at the end of the day in control of.
Okay, was there one more up here?
Hi, I'm Bridget Whaley. I'm a fashion design major. I was wondering if you guys partner with local fiber mills as well, instead of them being clients, like you be their client kind of thing?
Yeah. Currently, we are so we do a lot of work with Rust Belt Fiber Shed, and then we're starting to do a lot more work with the National Fiber Shed Organization. That network has really opened up a lot of interesting doors on a more zoomed in Midwest kind of Rust Belt scale for farmers and mills there. We are really hoping that over the next couple of years, we clean up some sort of a cohesive grade system for regional wool. And once that's kind of proven to work at scale, then we really will prioritize implementing that into like our private label program. So we have like a mechanism to shovel that material into and use it. Drives me nuts. You know, there's 500,000 pounds of wool in Ohio getting burned every year just because they're, you know, raised for meat, and they just shear them and have no use for the wool. So that's like a huge issue and something we really focus on. We have a pretty exciting new project we'll be announcing in a couple weeks with Kansas State University on this in terms of micro milling equipment, lots of cool stuff. So it's definitely, like, currently it's not a thing that is like ready to put in front of a brand and say like, go on this, but that's the goal, is to get it there.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that about wraps up our time. Thank you guys all. If we can all give kind of a nice round of applause
Thanks, guys.
for Aidan.
Thanks.